Hello and welcome to my training. My name is Chuck Holmes. I'm the founder of PartTimeCommander.com. We are a resource center for soldiers, NCOs, and officers in the National Guard, Army Reserve, and Defense Force. In this video, I want to educate you about the Platoon Sergeant initial counseling. This video is designed for new platoon leaders who need to sit down with the platoon sergeant and knock out their initial counseling. So counseling is an important part of a leader's job. One of our biggest jobs as Army leaders is to develop our subordinates for positions of increased responsibility. As a brand new platoon leader, you're very green. I've been there, I've done that. New platoon leaders were typically 22, 23, maybe 25 years old. We don't really have any military experience or much life experience. And here we are working with a platoon sergeant who's typically about 10, sometimes 12 years our senior. They've been in the military for a long time. They have a lot of experience, they have maturity, they have life experiences, that military experience. And in some way, we're supposed to figure out how to give them the proper guidance and expectations. And it's a challenging job for a lot of new lieutenants. It was for me as a brand new platoon leader. So what I want to do in this video is just give you some tips for success, share my thoughts on the subject, and talk about why it's important. So most platoon leaders in the Army, they work pretty well with their platoon sergeant if they are humble, if they are eager, if they're willing to learn, if they have an open mind and they don't act like a know-it-all. On the other flip side of the coin, some new platoon leaders, they get an ego trip and they really struggle in their position working with their platoon sergeant for that reason. Now, as a platoon leader, you have the responsibility to sit down with your platoon sergeant and do a formal counseling with them within their first about 30 days on the job. The sooner you can do it, the better. It's not good to wait. It's not good to procrastinate. Now, where a lot of people mess up is they just do a verbal counseling, if they do any counseling at all with their platoon sergeant. You want to do this in writing. This really is where the magic happens because it creates a paper trail. It shows your platoon sergeant that you're serious. And most people in the Army do not do this. In my entire career in the Army, I might have been counseled maybe once, maybe twice, if that, in writing by my boss. So most people in the Army don't do this. But in the event that your platoon sergeant falls short, it really helps if you have a paper trail. So let's get into it. The purpose of your counseling with your platoon sergeant is to let them know what you expect of them personally and professionally. And this is really going to set you up for success if you do this the right way, because they will know in writing what you expect of them in the job, what you expect of them for their professional expectations, both on and off duty. So here are just a few tips for success when you're going to do your initial counseling. Number one, you want to be prepared. You want to set aside a few hours ahead of time. You want to complete the forms. You want to make sure you have their pertinent information, their NCOs, their APFT, their height, weight, their 2-1 or their ERB. You want to set aside maybe 3-4 hours to get all of those things in place. You could also talk with the XO, with the first sergeant, get any guidance or tips from them. The next thing you want to do is you want to schedule the meeting. You don't want to just wing it. You want to have a set time and a set place of when and where you're going to knock this meeting out. And ideally, you want to give them a little bit of time to mentally prepare and for them to get organized as well for the meeting. The next thing you want to do is you want to have a set agenda. It's really important to keep the meeting to about an hour or less. And it helps if you have a written game plan of what you want to cover in the initial counseling. That way it can be organized, it can start on time, it can end on time, and you can complete the objectives that you want to knock out in the counseling. You want to document everything, put everything in writing. It really helps if you knock out the forms ahead of time. But another thing that I've found that works well is you can do the counseling, and then after the counseling session, you can go and complete all the forms and then have your platoon sergeant sign these forms. That works well too. You want to do more listening than talking. I have found, as a rule of thumb, in an initial counseling with your subordinate, you should do about 20% of the talking, and they should do about 80% of the talking. And you do this by asking questions and by listening. You don't really learn anything about your subordinate by talking, but you can learn a lot by asking questions and listening. So make sure you do that. Another thing you want to do is you want to be approachable. yet professional. So don't be a dick, as we like to say in the Army. Smile, be nice and friendly. Make sure you're checking your body language. Let them know that your goal is to create a win-win relationship with them. Let them know that you respect and you admire their experience that they have, that you don't have, and that you want your platoon to be successful and that you want to have a harmonious working relationship with them as much as possible. Finally, when you're doing your counseling, especially if this is your first time doing an initial counseling with your platoon sergeant, probably your first time doing an initial counseling with anyone in the Army, just do your best. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to learn by doing. That's okay. Your platoon sergeant does not expect you to have 100% of the answers. They know you're new. They know you're green. Good enough is good enough. Do your best. And by the time you are scheduled to do your follow-up counseling, that quarterly counseling, you're going to start to get some experience. And the more experience you get at something, the better you're going to be at that task. So I put together a platoon sergeant initial counseling packet. It's really designed for platoon leaders in the Guard and the Reserve, but it will help active duty platoon leaders as well. We have a 22-minute video teaching you everything you need to know to have a successful initial counseling session. I have some example forms filled out. I have an example reading list, an example platoon leader OER support form, interview questions, items that you want to gather for the counseling packet, an example agenda that you can follow, and several other items that will just make your life a lot easier. You can check that out and see if that's something that you would think would be a benefit or value to you. In conclusion, counseling is a very important part of your job as an Army leader, regardless of your rank or position. If you are supervising someone, in this example, you're a platoon leader supervising a platoon sergeant, you owe it to them to set them up for success. And the best way to make that happen is to do a formal initial counseling with them in writing within their first about 30 days or less in the job. That's going to set both of you up for success. It's going to create that paper trail in case you need it. And it's going to let your NCO know that you are serious and committed to being successful in your job. I hope you got some value out of today's video. You can learn more about this subject by clicking on the links in the description box below this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Feel free to leave a comment below. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for giving me time out of your busy schedule to check out this video. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.